Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to our Construction Online 2020 First Look webinar. I'm Holly Gibson, Senior Product Specialist here at UDA Technologies. I'm joined by my colleague, Jordan Davis.
Hey, everyone. Good afternoon.
Jordan's also one of our Senior Product Specialists here, and the two of us are joined, as always, on the keyboard today by our colleague, Sydney Dorsey, who will be available to answer questions as we go along. Let's jump right in.
Yeah, absolutely.
Now, for anyone who is new to Construction Online, of course, Construction Online is our award-winning project management platform. We're serving about 650,000 of you all over the world, helping you really do a better job managing your projects overall and hopefully make your day-to-day lives a little bit easier in the process. So it's going to cover comprehensive project management, really start to finish, from project planning, mapping out schedules and budgets, tracking communication and changes throughout the job. So many things that you can do with, of course, Construction Online overall. Now, today I know we wanted to really focus in, though, on some of the changes that we've implemented for Construction Online in regards to Redline Plan Room specifically. It's been one of our most popular new features over the last couple of years. So many of you are already using it really day to day to manage your plans. And we've added in some new tools, some new enhancements that will really give you even more power to manage your plans and get those shared out with other people.
Yeah, in addition to the core feature set of Redline Plan Room, today we're going to be covering a lot of intelligence that we've added to Redline Plan Room. It was very easy before to upload a set of plans, whether it was just a PDF or sets of pages, to any of your projects, and you could then go into Redline and add markup or comments or pin different parts of your projects specifically to locations on the plans themselves. Today we're really excited to show off a lot of the enhancements to the initial process of adding plans to your projects. Our developers have been hard at work to add a ton of machine learning enhancements to do things like automatically identify and name your plans, to find and add page numbers to your plans, and to extract callouts. We're really excited to show all of these features and more off today, and we think that it is really, really going to speed up your workflow when you're adding plans into Construction Online.
It really will. I think that speed up, Jordan, is maybe a key phrase there. We've had a chance, of course, as we're looking at building enhancements for Construction Online and Redline, we get a chance to really interact and work with so many of you out there. And one thing that we here is that the process of plan management is something that is a big chunk of time when it comes to project management, because almost every project is going to have those plans that need to be referenced. So that's really a core part of really just about any construction project, is having those. But it can be a really time-consuming and expensive undertaking to have not just one but multiple sets of plans printed, have to do that frequently, and then of course as markups or changes are being noted, to be able to communicate those effectively with the rest of the team. Looking at challenges like making sure that everybody has the most current version of any of those plans or sheets. If the wrong person gets an outdated version and doesn't really realize that there's something that has changed, that can be really costly when it comes to the success of the project, and financially costly as well.
Yeah, it's an unnecessary risk, and it's a terrible mistake that can happen, and it really doesn't have to. With the rise of the ability to share files online, especially using something like Construction Online, it really doesn't have to happen. And one of the enhancements that we've made right off the bat to Redline Plan Room for Construction Online 2020 is just that, keeping your current set of plans first and foremost front and center inside of Redline Plan Room. So those of you who've used Redline before will notice that some of the menu options have changed when you land inside of Redline Plan Room. The most obvious, of course, is when you're looking at the left sidebar for Redline Plan Room, you'll notice that the new title for the plans are Current Set.
Yeah, that's right. So once you select or jump into one of your projects there and head over to your plan room, you'll notice that option for current set here. This is really just to make sure that everyone who looks at this is always looking at that current set of plans. They're always looking at the most recent version of any of the plans or any of the sheets that you've uploaded. Now, of course, for this project, it looks like we don't have any sheets yet. So we're going to get started today by uploading a plan set into Redline and taking a look at some of that machine learning, Jordan, that you mentioned, and seeing how much time really we can save just in that initial process here. So of course, to get started doing that, all we'll do is select to upload plans, and each plan will now go into a version set. These are really just intended to be exactly what it sounds like, right? A version set. And the key thing here is that it is going to date stamp those with the date of issuance. So you'll be able to always see not only which set you're looking at, but the date that it was issued. So you'll know, again, when that most recent version of that sheet was uploaded.
Yeah, this is really useful in a number of ways. One, if you wanted to go back and look at an earlier set of plans for whatever reason, we'll talk later on about how you can compare revisions to individual sheets, but if for whatever reason you needed to go back and look at an earlier set, you can absolutely do that. But it also gives you the space to track, well, what is the reason why a new set was uploaded? Like, what specifically changed? I've already seen a number of different companies and people I've worked with over the past week now who are using this field in very interesting and useful ways that make sense to their teams.
That's right. So now that we've created our version set, of course, the next step is to upload our plans. So one thing in preparation for our meeting today, Jordan, I know that you and I had reached out and actually spoken with a number of our customers out there. We wanted to make sure for this webinar presentation today that we were able to show you guys real plan sets. So what we'll be looking at today are real sets of plans that some of our customers have graciously allowed us to use today. And hopefully that'll give you an idea really of real world usage. You know, these plan sets aren't prepped for optimum presentation or anything like that. These are real sets coming from customers who are who are using them every day. So we want to be able to show you guys what they can do. So we're going to start with one of our favorites, which is my favorite because it's a really large set. This particular set that we'll be looking at today has 158 sheets or pages. So it will take a couple of minutes to go through that upload process, but with that many sheets, what I love about it is that the time savings is just amplified so much when I think about, the amount of time a person might spend to go through 158 sheets manually, working out sheet numbers, creating references, things like that, and really just how much time can be saved here.
Yeah, absolutely. In addition to what you'll see in a moment, going through and pulling as many of the sheet numbers as it's going to find, pulling as many of the sheet names or sheet titles as it's going to find. The third step we think is a really interesting addition to Redline, and it's very useful, and the amount of time it would take to go through and do what you're going to see would be, I'm not going to say it's incalculable, but it would take so long that I'm pretty certain that people were not doing it beforehand. I really don't think that anyone is either going to pay somebody on their staff to sit down and add 1,000 plus links between different documents or something like that, or maybe they are, but I'll tell you right now that that's going to be a task of the past.
Definitely so. So what Redline's doing for us right now, of course, as we can see, this is where some of that AI or machine learning will really come into play. So we've uploaded our sheets, and now Redline has started the process of scanning that and mining those sheets for information that we can really use on our project team. The first thing that Redline is going to look for is our sheet numbers. And these are really important because a lot of things will come into play later on. Things like revisions and those call outs really depend on the sheet numbers being accurate. So this is a really important step in the process. We want to make sure always when we are uploading those plans that you do review the sheet numbers. In fact, You'll notice in a moment here that it really won't even let me go to the next step until I've taken a look at those, because once we get those sheet numbers loaded in, we've confirmed that they look good, that everything's correct, then there's so much that we'll be able to do with that. So we'll let it go ahead and populate our numbers for us here, and we'll have a chance to review in a moment.
Yeah, and some really interesting things are happening right now. The PDFs that we're uploading are a mix, and you'll see in a moment, of two different types of documents. The first is what you might be used to when you think of a PDF. It's one really large image. However, there are a lot of files that are inside of this PDF that really make the upload process really seamless. You've probably received these types of PDFs before and not really realized it, but most drawings or pages that you'll receive from, say, an architect, or a file that's generated from a CAD software, is going to be a vector PDF. Now, this is not one large image canvas. It's actually lines and points mapped out inside of the document. We recommend, if you can at all, upload vector PDFs, because that will work much, much better with the machine learning algorithm that's running in the background and scanning through this document. Now, you'll see it's actually going to work fantastically well with the image or the rastered PDF files that are mixed in here. But if you can, make sure that you ask for the vector PDFs.
Yeah, you'll always get usually easier and better results with those vector PDF files. So much so that when we're looking at Redline and really prioritizing enhancements on our side here, of course, one of the things that's really important to us is that we're providing you guys with the best tools in the industry. We don't want to just provide a plan room, but we really want to provide you with the best plan room. And so we compared our machine learning to that of some of the competitors out there, and found that consistently, even with those raster PDFs, that we were able to locate more information, pull more off of those images, and certainly with the vector PDF format, then that's going to be even faster and easier as you go through this process. Now, you'll notice here that Redline has alerted me that my scan is complete. It's gone through all 158 sheets, and now my next step is to review the sheet numbers. So like I mentioned, this is going to be an important part of the process. We do want to look through these sheet numbers and make sure that they're correct. So there are a few things here that are really going to help you be able to do that very easily. You'll notice that you've got a couple of previews here. So we'll be able to see the name of the file that we uploaded, which is just the name of the PDF. And then for each sheet within that file or document, we're able to see a big picture preview over here on the left, so that we can see the whole sheet sort of in context. And then we'll see a detail or zoomed in view of the area that was where the information was detected. So in this case, Redline's done a great job. It's detected sheet G000, and it's showing me exactly where it found that, so I can kind of quickly do a scan through and compare, just knowing that everything looks good. As we scroll down, you'll start to notice that most of these have come in quite beautifully. I've looked at this one before, and there are going to be a few that need our attention. So one thing that we've noticed in looking at plan sets that you guys have sent us to take a look at is that, very often a comprehensive set is going to be made of sheets that might come from different sources. So, very often you might have, an architectural sheets or sections. You may have mechanical sections. You may have sections for your electrical, from your electrical contractor. So these are all going to come together. Sometimes if those sheets are coming from different sources, you may even have a mix of different type of PDFs. You'll notice here, there's a couple of pages that are actually my surveys. That it did pull the information correctly. It's letting me know this is sheet 1 of 1, and this one is as well, but that's not really how I want these to be numbered. So I can just type in whatever I want here. I could type in the correct number, or since these are both numbered 1 of 1, I might just name this survey 1 and survey 2, so that I'll be able to reference those kind of separately.
Yeah, admirable job for the actual detection there, but this is really where Our system, I think, is going to do a lot of the heavy lifting for you, but remember, our system is there to make you seem like a genius, so it's really going to save you a ton of time. Maybe you have to do a little bit of work now as opposed to going through and actually numbering these sheets one by one.
Well, that's right. And if you do have to go through, and as we go through, you can see how fast and easy it was for me to correct those. Each sheet number has to be unique. So you'll notice that Redline helpfully highlighted for me the rows that needed my attention so that I could quickly see where I might have some duplicate sheet numbers or things that needed my attention. As we scroll through and take a look, everything else seems to be in order. I can see that the sheet numbers have all populated correctly based on this PDF. And as we get to the bottom of the page here, I'll have an option to go ahead and confirm that my sheet numbers are correct and move on to the next step. So now the next thing, of course, that Redline's going to do for us is go ahead and scan not only for the sheet numbers, but now we'll take a look at scanning for sheet names and tags. So with the plan sets that you upload, of course, each one is going to have a different or unique sheet number. Each one is usually also going to have a name. And based on those sheet numbers and abbreviations, we'll be able to apply some tags and give you a chance to apply some tags just for further organization as well. So that'll be something that we get to review on the next step.
Yeah, the tags are a really useful feature. Later when you're actually working inside of Redline Plan Room, you can use different tags on different sheets to filter. So let's say you wanted to view only the structural plans, right? Most of those would have been tagged with an S in front of the sheet number. Our system is going to go ahead and detect that and add the structural tag to those sheets for you. Now, if there's other pieces that you wanted to, or other sheets you wanted to tag with structural tag, even though it might not be part of the number, maybe it's related in some way, you can absolutely do that. You can also create and add your own custom tags, which makes it really easy for you to filter down to, say, maybe 3 or 4 sheets out of this 158 sheet set, depending on your own characteristics and your needs.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and when you think about how much easier that it would be to be able to do that digitally as opposed to, again, on paper or just maybe sorting through, files just kind of uploaded to like a file storage system, this really is going to give you such a faster and easier way to get to the information that you need.
Yeah, I was just having a conversation yesterday, actually, with one of our clients who had called in and had some questions about Redline Plan Room because of the webinar today, actually, and they mentioned that they were printing roughly 60 sheets a day per person so they could pull out a red marker and leave comments for each other before they scanned in 1 or 2 pages out of the 60 to send to each other. So, yeah, I think they're going to be saving a lot more time moving through this system in the future.
I think so, and that's not really unusual. I think the thing that we see there is that it's not unusual at all for project teams to really have a need to look at and reference and review those plans on a regular basis throughout the life of the project. That is just, again, something that you'll need to do usually pretty regularly, and so I think as you're going through and kind of working with those, we want an easy way to not only be able to to kind of store them somewhere the first time, but it's usually not like you store them somewhere and forget about it. These are things that the project team will continue to reference, need to continue to make notes on, need to continue to share with other people. Now, what's happened here is that we've completed our step for scanning the sheet names. And what it does when it's looking for the sheet name is it does its best kind of based on that machine learning to locate the sheet name based on either its label, the size of the text, kind of position or proximity to things like the sheet number. Many plans will follow certain patterns, so we're able to detect and pick up on those patterns. If we're dealing with a plan set that maybe does not follow one of those patterns, a couple of things happen. One is that we're able to just choose an area and scan it, so that's what we'll go ahead and do here. I can see that my sheet name is actually located down here, and it's pretty small, so let's bring that back up again. We'll just zoom in, select the area, and go ahead and highlight where we want Redline to really look as it's scanning through here. So I'll highlight that area, go ahead and select choose, and what will happen next is it will give me a preview of what it's detected, kind of based on the area that I've chosen. If that looks good to me here, I'm just going to select apply to all sheets, assuming they all follow that pattern, and you'll notice how quickly it then just again went through and rescanned. We're extracting the rest of the text to apply to, again, all 158 sheets.
Yeah,
and as we go through, we'll see that those names are now all populating throughout my plan set. So again, I can just double check these for accuracy, make sure everything looks good, and make sure there's nothing maybe that I would need to add. Those same survey sheets that are kind of the oddballs of this plan set. Maybe we want to do some renaming here. With sheet names, by the way, those aren't required. So even though I think it's really nice to have them, if you do have a couple where a name really doesn't apply, or the sheet number kind of tells you what it is, you can go ahead and get rid of the names. Those are not required.
It's the same thing is true for the tags. As we're scrolling through, you'll see that some of the documents don't have tags. Again, they're not required. They are very helpful. So if you wanted to, you could click into the field and add your own tags if you would like. We have a fairly comprehensive set of tags, but if you wanted to add your own custom tags, you can do that as well. If you notice, the scan area that Holly selected was pretty clever. Of course, we know how Redline is going to function when we actually set a scan area, so we kind of are a little ahead of the game, but you want to think about how the titles of your sheets or the names of your sheets are formatted, not just on the first sheet, but it could be that there's an overlap or a second row of text that might show up, which we can see here. We're kind of catching the word phase towards the tail end of some of the sheets. If we really wanted to, we could rescan the sheets and fine-tune that just a bit to cut it out, but for demonstration purposes, it's not entirely necessary. And of course, it's really easy to jump into the sheet name field itself and to adjust it for any spot checks. Go ahead.
Yeah, that's right. It is. It's super easy to adjust. Of course, it's always going to do what we tell it to do. So as you're going through and setting those scan areas, if you have sheets, we of course do our best to identify that scan area. If you set it manually, you may have to fine tune that, or you may find that you've accidentally, scanned too large or too small of an area. The great thing here is that you can always go back and scan that really quickly. If you ever needed to do that for just a certain sheets or certain sections, you can simply check off some of these here, choose a scan area for just those few that you want, and rerun it. So a lot of great options in terms of setup. You'll notice that once we've selected a couple of sheets, we get some additional options here, things like clearing out tags, rotating them, or even deleting them. Sometimes you'll have some extra sheets or maybe index pages that come in that just aren't needed. So there's some fast and easy ways to make a few additional adjustments as well.
Mm-hmm. And it's a really useful way to handle those sheets, like we were talking about with the surveys that have come in from a subcontractor or another group. Someone had actually just asked a question about that. It's pretty simple to go through and select those specific sheets that are formatted slightly differently than everyone else's sheets, and actually pull in those titles quickly as opposed to typing them out one by one by one.
Yeah, that's exactly right. It is. I actually, I see a couple of questions like that coming through. Those are great questions, guys. And actually, I have another plan set we can look at maybe later in the webinar if you want to see, kind of live how that's handled. It's a little bit more of an evenly mixed set, because I do think that's really common. And so what we've tried to do is make it detect as much as we can as you're going through that first round. And then if you need to make the adjustments, you'll be able to do that really fast and easy using the previews and the scanning tools here. We also had a great question from someone about text that's formatted kind of vertically on the page. So if you have text or titles that are printed sideways, so your title block is maybe running along the margin here, the text is not printed the same orientation as everything else. Again, that's perfectly fine. In fact, our survey sheets are done that way, so I'll give you guys an idea of what that would look like. But if we wanted to have it choose some names here, I can see that maybe we've got some text that is kind of sideways vertically here on the page. I can just select the area, draw a tiny little box around it there, go ahead and choose that, and it'll go ahead and detect that that text for me, just the same as if it was formatted, a little bit more horizontally. So you definitely have the option to do that.
Yeah, the key here is this is intelligent OCR. I don't know if anyone here is familiar with optical character recognition. This is much like optical character recognition 2.0.
Yeah.
It would be a good way of thinking about it.
That's right.
Not your uncle's OCR. I'm not really sure. You
Right.
can't go too far back, right? But
So a couple of quick things before we leave this page. You'll notice that it not only, of course, did the names, but the tags. As Jordan mentioned, it will do those automatically. So you'll notice my A's are all labeled architectural. My L's will be labeled with landscape. So P's are going to be labeled with plumbing. So, it'll try to do, again, some of that automatically for you. If you want to fine tune or adjust, you do have your gear for tags, which allows you to apply some customization, so you can create your own tags if you'd like. We give you a set to work with, but you can create add to this list, add tags that you might want to apply that are either outside of what we've provided here, or sometimes people are using the tags, Jordan, like you mentioned, pretty creatively to be able to track and sort all sorts of other things. So those are all some great options for you guys in terms of tagging and organizing these. And now that we've done our sheet names and tags, we're just going to go ahead and confirm that those are correct, and we'll move on to the next step, which is where Redline is going to do some of that really heavy lifting for us and scan for any of those callouts or links between the pages.
yeah, and the system is really, really intelligent here. Redline is going to look for very specific sets of patterns within the document. You can see right at the top, this is a fairly standard callout symbol, but our system is actually looking for very specific patterns of something like the actual sheet, letter and number. Then Redline is actually going to highlight or add a circular link inside of the document that would let you jump from the sheet that you're on to the detail across on, say, page A4.0, for instance. It's very smart. The actual symbols don't have to be oriented in one direction. I know someone's probably going to ask a question about, well, what if the text here is sideways? Well, like we were saying before, this really isn't your standard OCR. There's a lot of things happening in the background that's going to make it much easier for you to link your documents together.
That's right. And you'll notice, so Redline has now completed our scan for callouts, and it's actually detected over 1,000 callouts or linkages between these 158 sheets. So one thing when I look at this, first of all, over 1,000, that's really awesome that it's, been able to find so many. And when I think about how long it would take, because you can certainly create those linkages manually. So with Redline, you can go through and create manual links. So that functionality has been there for a while. You've been able to do those linking between sheets. But I think if you budget let's say we're working fast, maybe 3 minutes per call out. And I think that's pretty optimistic, right? So for each one, you'd have to zoom in, look at the symbol. You'd have to create the link. Then you'd have to tell the link where to point. So I think if you really got on a roll and started doing those, you could probably do it in about, I don't know, I think 3 to 5 minutes each is probably what it would end up taking. Optimistically 3,000 to 5,000 minutes, right? That you'd be spending. So, that's a lot of man hours to spend. But having those references, especially on a project that might run for a couple of years, you're really going to need to go back and forth and be able to reference those sheets. So I just love that it's able to cut out so much work where it can. It's going to detect those for you and allow you to really, really get going with the process of getting to work on the plans, spending a little bit less time in setup. So now that that's done, so we've completed the process of scanning our sheet. So it's, just to review what that looks like, it's going to of course, go ahead and scan those sheet numbers. So that's the first thing we're going to look for. It's going to scan your sheet names, apply tags automatically as much as it can. Then it will go ahead and scan for your callouts and automatically populate those. Once we've done that, you'll notice that now we're back to our current set view here. So this is just, as Jordan had mentioned earlier, now of course it's populated with all 158 sheets that we've uploaded. And in this view, what we're always going to be looking at is the latest version of each sheet. You can go back and look at prior versions. So as we kind of get a little bit further along and maybe have to start doing things like marking some of these up or uploading revised versions of some of these. You may have a mixed set here where you get a revision for 2 or 3 of these pages, but not all of them. So you'll always see whatever is the latest. Since we just uploaded these, of course, they're all going to be marked as V1. I can see easily which set they're associated with and any tags that are applied. And of course, I can also go ahead and filter these if I want to take a look maybe at just the architectural piece of this set, or if I wanted to, just any of these sections really here. Of course, you can filter by anything. You can also filter down by the different version sets. So those, again, are always going to be date stamped, so you can see you can see which date they were issued on. If you need to go back and look through those, you can. We'll clear out these filters and go ahead and jump into one of our plans. And one thing I can tell here, so we've got a couple of symbols here. And this first one, this little squiggly line, is really just indicating that there is something on the plan. So it could be, a markup that I've done. In this case, it's going to be call out. So I can easily see which ones do have those call out sheets. We'll just go into one of these and take a look so that we can see how that information is going to show up for you in terms of those 1,080 call outs that were found. What does that then look like when you go into your plans?
Yeah, well, it looks a lot like this. So the callouts, as you can see, are actually highlighted by these little red translucent circles. You can actually zoom in pretty far into any redline drawings, and what you'll notice is that each one of these circles, if you were to hover over them, are a link. And now, to give you an idea, if you click on the callout, you're not over committing to jumping to that sheet just yet. If you wanted to review and see exactly where you were about to land before you make the jump, you absolutely can. And then from this point, you can actually click the button to jump to that sheet to see exactly what this callout is referencing. When you click on that button, the linked page is going to open up in a new tab. That way you can come back to what you were working on before, if it was something that you were just looking at for reference, or if you wanted to go ahead and move to this page to begin working on adding something like markups on the sheet, or if you needed to pin something from ConstructionOnline, let's say maybe a to-do or a task or something like that, well, then you can get right to it.
That's right. So as we, begin to work with these, of course, the call outs or links make it really easy to jump to those detail sheets or other reference points. It looks like here we had a link to a roofing detail, so we might want to go in and take a look at that. Of course, once you're inside any of these sheets in Redline, you may want to do things like then begin to, take notes. You might want to highlight things. You may want to make comments. So all of those tools are, of course, going to be available for you, just like always in Redline as well. That will give us the ability to, maybe if we just need to highlight something and make a note. All of your drawing tools are going to be here. So that's going to be anything from freehand drawing, which works really well on tools like a Surface Pro or an iPad Pro. So you'll be able to use your pen or your stylus to go ahead and mark those up. But of course, if you're just working on an old-fashioned computer with a mouse like I am right now, it works beautifully there as well. You have your shapes, you have your calibrator and measuring tools. You have some options for adding text or annotations to these sheets if we needed to add some text here. And then you can also attach things to the sheet as well. Now here's that call out link we were talking about earlier. So, a couple of you guys, as we've looked at the different types of PDFs, have asked, what do I need to ask my architect for? How can I make sure I'm getting those vector PDFs so that as much of this information as possible is going to be found? So of course, you'll want to try to make sure that those sheets are really formatted as best you can before you pull them in. If for some reason maybe you're just not getting that format and want to come back and add some links of your own, maybe between some pages, you can use this call out link tool here. And you could just come in and highlight. What you'll do first is choose where you want it to go. So maybe I just want to make one here on this number 2 circle. I'll place it, and then what will happen is it'll just pull up a drop down with all of the sheets in this plan set. I can choose where I want it to go, and then I've created the call out manually right here on the page as well.
Yeah, and you can use this for not just call outs. I was actually speaking with somebody earlier today who was interested in linking sheets together, just to make it more convenient to jump from one sheet to another related sheet. You can do a lot of creative things with the tools inside of Redline. For instance, you could set up this link and then put a quick note underneath the call out itself to tell what it's for or where it's going to. Really, there's no limit on what you can actually do inside of Redline. You don't have to stick with our pre-built conventions. I think that's one of the biggest advantages of using a digital, especially a web-based plan management tool, is that in addition to being able to break some conventions in some cases, you can do this wherever you are. You can take it with you.
You definitely can. You can also manage some other pieces of the project right on your plans as well. So, again, for those of you that are currently using Construction Online for your day-to-day project management, that there's so much that you can do and track within the system. We're right now looking at my project name here is 2272 Hamilton. And as we go through this panel on the right-hand side, so of course our drawing and markup tools are on the left. We also have some additional tools over here, including our drawing information. We'll be able to see things like history in terms of drawings or callouts that were made or added. We'll be able to see who's on the project team, who's able to see this, as well as different layers that we may have created. So you are able to create layers on this sheet so that you can kind of quickly turn groups of markups on and off. So a lot of really nice things that you can do here. But you can also have access to everything else related to this project. So I can see all of my regular files and photos here. So if I just needed to note that perhaps this photo was tagged to this plan, I can just drag it, drop it, and it's now pinned or referenced to this sheet. So it's great to be able to add, again, those detail pictures or maybe photographs of things that need to be resolved or where there's a question. You also, of course, have all of your other Construction Online tools. So maybe if we were on the job site and needed to add something to our punch list, you can do that right here. We'd be able to create those punch list items. Same thing with RFIs or submittals. Really, the possibilities are endless. Change orders, all of those can be created, then linked and dropped right onto these sheets or specific places on the sheet, so that you can really reference the rest of your project management right onto your plan.
And we will say, we haven't forgotten those of you who maybe need to print out a sheet or something like that. If you look down at the bottom right of this right side panel as well, you'll see that there are not only options for sharing or emailing a specific page as a PDF with markups, you can also print out the page. I know some people they just can't get away from paper, and we understand that. But instead of having to print out all 60 or 158 sheets to get to this one with the markup, right, you can print out just that sheet.
Yeah, that's right. So you can, from here, print. Share is going to give you the option to just send it to someone as an email, so you'd be able to quickly share it out here. Now, in terms of sharing, of course, your other Construction Online company users or teammates there will, of course, have access to Redline. If you want to make sure that these sheets are shared out with your client link or team link members through the portals that we offer in Construction Online, you can easily set that up. You have a couple of options. If you want to just share the current set, which is really, I think, the easiest thing to do. If we just want to make sure that even our extended current team members always have access to the most current set of plans, in your menu here in the top right, you'll just choose your share settings, share with client link, share with team link, save that, and it's going to go ahead and apply that to all of the sheets. So that just means that any of my clients or Team Link members are going to have access to this current set of sheets right within their portal. I can tell which ones are shared just by hovering over the little share icon. I can see who I've shared it with. If perhaps you don't want to share the whole set, but maybe just sections of that, you can do that just by selecting which sheets you want to share, right-clicking, and choosing the share option there. So again, super easy to get those not only shared via a quick email, but if you want to give someone a little bit more permanent access, Client Link and Team Link are a great way to do that.
Yeah, and that actually gives them access to the Redline tool set, and so they can actually look at the different pieces of markup that you've added to the drawing. They can look at things like the callouts, et cetera, et cetera. Now, of course, they're not going to be able to jump to a sheet from a callout if they don't have access to that sheet, so do keep that in mind. But it is a really easy way to share and collaborate with someone like a client, for instance, who might be more of a visually oriented person. Of course, it makes a ton of sense for you to share your plans with a design team on a larger scale project. There's plenty of different reasons why you'd want to share out a plans set with different groups of people on a project, and we've worked really hard to make that simple and straightforward and easy to identify with this latest set of updates to Redline.
Yeah, it just brings so much visibility. You can always see, exactly what you've done, exactly who you've shared it with, and really rest easy knowing that, again, that no one on the team or extended team has to worry, do I have the latest thing? As long as you have the latest information and are uploading it here, then immediately everybody on the project team is always going to have easy access just to that latest version. You can, if you ever need to go back and look at your history, there's a great publish log tool that will allow me to see, exactly what I've uploaded, when I did it, or maybe if others are uploading things so that you can see what's been published or added. And one thing that I wanted to show you guys, kind of the last thing, I guess, before we get to our questions and answers, although I do see that we have a couple of people who've already asked about this, is okay, so as we really get more into doing things like adding revisions or different versions of sheets, is there, how can we see what's different between the two? So we have a really great tool, and then we'll just jump into another plan set for a moment so that you guys will be able to see how that comparison will work when we want to look at different versions or different revisions of the same plan.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, before we actually show off the comparison tool, someone had just asked, do markups transfer from an earlier version to a later revision? And the answer is, well, that's actually up to you. There's an option when you're uploading a second revision or third revision or fourth or etc. revision of an actual sheet to choose whether or not you want the original markups to carry over to the second set. Mm-hmm. So it's up to you, actually.
Yeah, great question, and great to have the flexibility of those options. Now, in this case, we're going to just take a look at a sheet that doesn't really have any. It doesn't have any markups that we've added, but we have received a revision. So in this case, we have the exact same sheet, but we have an original version and a revised version. So to compare that, of course, all I did here was just right-click, chose the compare option, and now what we'll look at here is that it's going to give me a list of all of the different revisions or versions that I could choose from. So we'll just choose both of these, so we want to see those together, and then when I go ahead and hit the choose button, it's going to load for me both at the same time. Yep.
Now you can see it loaded in, and you can already tell there's something going on here in the middle of the drawing that is very different from the rest of the drawing, which seems to be pretty static. I think it stands out very well.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it does. So the goal here would be to really just allow you, like you were saying, Jordan, to be able to quickly identify or compare those different versions. So you can, we've got 2 here. You can do 3 or 4 at a time. That's really unique to Redline and how we handle that. And we also allow you, as you're looking at those, to kind of turn them on and off. So you might want to spot different things. This here will let us know my original is in red. And the revised version's in blue. So if I did want to turn one of those off, you'll notice that, each layer really appears with its color. What we're seeing here is where you see black, that's where the red and the blue meet. So those are those areas that are not changed. So those are the things that are going to be, the same between those 2 or 3 or 4 layers, whatever you're looking at there. And then the areas here that are red and blue, I can quickly see that, this is where I've had some changes. So we can, zoom in, maybe look at the detail on those, identify exactly what's changed. Again, you can kind of turn those on and off if you need to switch back and forth for a moment. And one thing that I love here as well is that as you're looking at these comparisons, kind of identifying that, maybe what changes have taken place, if you need to maybe just download a copy of that or send it to someone. You do have the option to just export this out as a picture so that you can then, get that over to someone else if you need them to take a look as well. The alignment adjustment would be used, in the case where you were seeing some color that wasn't really a result of change, but maybe you could tell from some of the title blocks that it just wasn't quite lined up the way it was supposed to be. So you could pick a point that you knew was fixed, use the adjust alignment to kind of bring things back into alignment so that you really focus in again on those changes.
Yeah, it'll be pretty apparent if the entire document is misaligned. In fact, let's see if I can actually do that. I think it's this is not going to be a common occurrence for some people, but it might be in others. So let's say we'll zoom to the selected area, and let's just say this, So this might be a good example of what your drawing would look like if it was misaligned. You can see there's a lot of contrast here. There's just a little bit of overlap. If you really want to fine tune, you can use this button here to move it like a fraction of a pixel. For those of you out there who really have to get things precise, this is very important. And you can see I'm actually keying off of this piece here to really dial it in. I think we just push it a little over and perfect. You can see there's a little bit of a difference, but I don't think that that's going to completely negate what we're really interested in, which are these changes that have been made throughout the document here. So if you load a drawing and it looks like what we saw, where it's maybe it almost looks like it should be one of those 3D images where you have to put on the red and blue glasses to actually see the full image. Definitely use the adjust alignment tool before you start really asking questions about, well, why is this here? Why is this off center?
So we'll go ahead and head back to our current set here. So, and you guys can see, with this project, we only have a couple of sheets. So we wanted to make sure today to show you guys a really nice large set so that you could see all the things that Redline would be able to scan for, but it's really just as useful even if your set, maybe contains 5 sheets or 10. We see that a good bit as well, where maybe you've got a little bit of a smaller set, so it's going to still walk through those steps for you, still allow you to, of course, track all of your revisions. So a lot of great ways to use Redline here. Now, it does look like that we've had a ton of great questions come in. I know it looks like Sydney has been doing an excellent job trying to keep up with you guys there and really try to get as many of those questions answered as we can before the top of the hour. It looks like we've got just over 5 minutes, about 5 minutes left that we've allocated today. So, of course, Jordan and I can hang around and make sure that your questions are getting answered, but we're going to take just a moment to review those and make sure that we're not missing anything that we maybe wanted to cover as we were going along. If you guys do have questions that you haven't thought to ask yet, or maybe that you've been saving for the end, this would be a great time to go ahead and chat those over. So we'll take a look at the questions now. Yeah, so it looks like we did have some really great questions about that revision process, which actually kind of brings me to say we've spent a lot of time today looking at getting your sheets uploaded, organizing them, really all of the things that the Redline technology and machine learning tools can do in terms of that process. We will be having another workshop in a few weeks' time that will focus on plan management for things like revisions and drawings and layers and some of the additional things that we've added for Redline for you there. So we'll do a deep dive into that on a later session. We also had a great question really coming in from someone wanting to know with Redline if it's really only designed for Windows or if it can be used on a Mac as well. And so, one really great thing about Redline is that it is, even though it's so powerful, it's built right into the ConstructionOnline web interface, which means that you can use it on, your Windows PC. You can use it on a Mac computer. I know, some of the programs out there that you guys may have been exposed to, especially ones that, were powerful or tried to do as much as Redline does, do tend to be desktop programs. So, sometimes you'll have to download those or download kind of a desktop client to be able to get to some of those features. With Redline, it's all built right into your web interface, so that's always going to be available for you.
Yeah, someone had asked, what if you receive a revised set of plans that actually adds in a new page? So let's say maybe in the first set that we uploaded, page A103 was actually page, I don't know, maybe there's a new page that needs to be inserted, and then the rest of the pages after that are going to be numbered A104, A105, etc., etc. The short answer is our system can absolutely handle that. You just need to re-upload a new set of plans and have them run through. Now, it does make revisions a little trickier given that the revision system, if you were keying that off of the numbers for the pages, would try to set up and point back to the other plans. However, if you do have a revision to a plan that you needed to upload and maybe you didn't want to re-upload the entire set, you can actually just go through and create a revision for an individual plan set. So there's a couple of different ways to handle it. You're not stuck with the current set of numbering here. That's really the beauty and the advantage of being able to upload a new set of plans.
Mm-hmm. We also have a really great question coming in about viewing a complete set of plans in one file, or is it always going to be separated into separate sheets? So, the file does stay together when you upload a file. In this case, this is a single PDF that had, 158 sheets in it. Because those are sheets that we, of course, always, will always be looking at a specific page. This file stays together, and if you're kind of thinking of how it's grouped, part of that is happening by this version set. So the set today issued for construction, that's all 158 that I uploaded with that particular file or document. And really they are, of course, separated so that you can easily see what you've got on each sheet. However, there's a couple of alternate views you can use as well. So of course you do have this layout. So if you wanted a little bit more of a preview of kind of what was on each of those before you opened it up. If we go into one of these, one of the things that you'll notice is that it's kind of like if you were, just opening this up in a regular PDF reader. You're only going to look at one sheet at a time, but you'll be able to scroll or flip to the next ones really quickly, and that's exactly how Redline handles it as well. So as we're here looking at this particular sheet, I have arrows here at the bottom, which are going to allow me to just advance to the next sheet or go back to the previous. And then we also have the sheet selector, so that, again, all of these are kept together in one set. It's just really going to display or give you the ability to preview each one individually, much like you would with any PDF there. Let's see, and lastly, I think we have time for one more question. We do have someone who's asking about some of the estimating or measuring tools in Redline and kind of the plans for tying that in with other areas of things that we offer here at UDA from an estimating standpoint. And we're really excited to be able to talk to you a little bit about that. That's definitely kind of on the roadmap, and those are some enhancements that you'll start to see in Redline very soon. Of course, right now you are able to do things like take measurements What you'll start to see with Redline is more of a comprehensive takeoff tool as well, where you'll be able to not only take measurements, but group those together, create dimension sets, do things like count or stamp out things on the plan. So if we needed to maybe stamp out or count how many outlets were needed or how many studs were needed, or whatever you may be needing to measure, those can tie in with your measurements. And so we've got some really exciting things coming down the pipe for Redline in terms of takeoff capabilities as well.
Yeah, that's the last question that just came in right now. Actually asked, in a future update, can we have a takeoff feature? The short answer is we're working on that.
Yep.
Literally right now. Good question.
Yeah, great questions, you guys. So I think, Jordan, that puts us out of time for today. So before we sign off, I do want to take just a moment to again thank all of you for joining us today. We've enjoyed being able to share some of the latest enhancements and updates to Redline. Hope you'll all go out and upload some plans this afternoon. Kind of get busy putting those into the system. If you have any questions that we can help you with, of course, Jordan and I and the rest of our team here at UDA are always happy and excited to work with you. So feel free to reach out to us by phone. We're here at 800-700-8321. You can also reach us at info@uda1.com.